Love to hear the creativity of someone improvising on the piano or the guitar or the drums, as Matthew is so good at doing. Others of us enjoy the spontaneity of a live improvised comedy routine. But very few of us appreciate an improvisational life. We want things planned and settled with predictable outcomes and guaranteed endings. That's why I think that the strangers' questions, perhaps they were angels. That's why I think that the angels' question to Mary at the tomb was such a startlingly profound question. Why are you looking for the living among the dead? Why are you looking for the living among the dead? Yes, you're doing the normally expected thing. You are following the logical patterns of the universe. When people die, it's true, you look for them in the cemetery, not on the local golf course or on the cleaning aisle at the Costco. But have you noticed? Have you noticed that spiritual realities seldom coincide with the logical patterns of the universe? And yet, ironically, spiritual realities are precisely where we seem to get the most uptight and rigid. Don't mess with what I believe about God. Don't mess with what I learned in Sunday school as a child. Don't mess with the doctrines of the church, because if you do, I won't know what to do. I depend on them. I depend on them staying the same so that I know exactly what is required of me. And so I know exactly what I need to do to be saved. And I know exactly what is right and what is wrong in every situation so that I can do what is right and I can condemn everyone else who does what is wrong. So I can minimize my fear about how out of control my life seems to me. Like so many of us, Mary came to the tomb looking for the dead in a place for the dead. But in the process, she was confronted by a question that she had not expected to hear. Why do you look for the living among the dead? What if the life of faith is not static and cannot be found in static, dead doctrines, but rather in the living practice of those who are captured by the reality of love? If we keep going to the tomb, friends, will we ever find a living God? What if resurrection happens in our own lives when we move beyond the entrenched understandings of the past and the comfortable patterns of the present? What if we were to bury what is dead, bury what is dead, and look elsewhere for what is alive? What if the life of faith is more about an improvisational journey with a living God? What if it's more like that than a walk through a doctrinal cemetery, looking for a way to feel safe with the old ways, assuming that though they can't help us any longer, at least the dead cannot hurt us? The gospel writers themselves did not seem to be fearful of improvisation. If you read the four accounts of the resurrection with any attentiveness in each of the Gospels, you immediately recognize that each of them tells the story of Jesus' resurrection somewhat differently. In fact, the details of the story are quite different. But what is the same is the basic theme. Namely, that the one we thought human malice had killed, the one we thought had foolishly held on to hope in the face of evil unleashed, the one that we thought was dead is not in a tomb, but is alive. For God has raised him up. God has raised her up. So let's follow the example of the writers of the Gospels. Let's find our own way to improvise on this very good news in our own lives. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to leave the dead places of your life and look for God among the living. Go deep within yourself and deep within the life of this faith community. And go there to find God among living, breathing human beings. Listen to your life and listen to the life of others with humility and respect and openness. Notice one another's particular improvisations on the theme of love. And I dare say you will find God there, in that place, in that life, much more quickly than among the rigid certainties of the past or among the tired expectations of a routinized life that cannot discover good news in unexpected places. A life that cannot be open to the surprise of love and life in the midst of a graveyard. Linda Stout unexpectedly reminded me of the pervasiveness and invasiveness of love at lunch this week when she plopped down on the table the opening lines from the movie Love Actually. Whenever I get gloomy with the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport. General opinions starting to make out that we live in a world of hatred and greed. But I don't see that. It seems to me that love is everywhere. Often it's not particularly dignified or newsworthy, but it's always there. Fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. When the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from the people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were all messages of love. If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling that you'll find that love is actually all around. Love is actually all around. Why do you look for the living among the dead? In dead relationships, lifeless routines, empty rhetoric, fearful voices in the media and in our own heads. Resurrection, it seems to me, is about bold improvisations on the theme of love. It's about opening ourselves to new life. It's about letting cemeteries be places to visit the dead and letting our unpredictable and evolving lives be the place where the Spirit lives and grows and has its being. Friends, there is good news to be shared this day. Jesus is not dead, but is risen. And resurrection means that love is more powerful than death. Love is more powerful than fear. Resurrection means that though the world is full of physical and emotional and spiritual cemeteries, we do not have to live in them. Resurrection, friends, was not meant to be a one-time historical event. Jesus' resurrection is an invitation to find life and love all around us, especially in times and at places that we least expect. Resurrection is an invitation to improvise on the themes of love in our own lives. Let us celebrate this good news, that the graves of this world could not hold Jesus, and therefore cannot hold us. Instead, let us look for the risen one in one another, in our sometimes startling attempts to improvise on the theme of love. For the Spirit of God is indeed here among the living. Jesus is risen. We are risen. May the congregation say, "Thanks be